What happened when your darkest fear came true? I never thought my darkest fear would arrive in the quietest moment of my life. No storm, no warning, just silence before everything unraveled. It was late, past midnight, when the phone rang. My stomach twisted because no good news ever arrives at that hour. The screen lit up with a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated, my hand trembling above the phone, before finally answering. Dad? My daughter's voice, but broken, jagged, trembling like glass about to shatter. Ren? What's wrong? I sat up so fast the blanket slid onto the floor. She didn't answer right away. I heard muffled sobs, then words that cut into me. I'm outside. Please, open the door. I rushed barefoot to the front porch, the cold wood burning my feet. And when I opened the door, my darkest fear stepped out of the shadows. Ren stood there, barely standing. Her face was swollen on one side, purple and black spreading across her skin. Her lip was split, blood dripping onto her shirt. Her arms trembled like they couldn't hold her upright anymore. She collapsed into my chest, sobbing so violently I could barely keep her from slipping to the ground. What happened? Who did this? My voice cracked, sharp with panic. She clung to me like she was drowning. It took minutes before she whispered a name. Andrew. Andrew, the man I'd welcomed into my home. The man who'd brought her smiles back after years of grief. The man I'd called son. My blood ran cold. Inside, I laid her gently on the couch. She curled into herself, shaking, while I fetched a blanket, water, anything to make her feel safe. But safety had already been shattered. Her voice, hoarse and uneven, filled the room. It started small, grabbing my wrist, pushing when we argued. I thought I could handle it. I thought her sob caught in her throat. Then tonight, he accused me of cheating. I smiled at the grocery clerk, Dad. That's all. He punched me so hard I blacked out. I felt something inside me break. The man I'd trusted, the one who'd looked me in the eye and promised to care for my daughter, had been destroying her behind closed doors. And I hadn't seen it. Or maybe I hadn't wanted to see. As she spoke, pieces fell into place. The heavier makeup, the quiet dinners where Andrew dominated every story, the flinches I brushed off as nerves. Signs had been there, and I'd missed them all. I held her while she cried herself to sleep on my couch. Even unconscious, her body trembled, small gasps escaping her lips as if the nightmare hadn't released her yet. I sat at the table all night, staring into the dark, thinking about the promise I'd made to her mother before she died that I would protect Ren, no matter what. When dawn came, I kissed her bruised forehead and whispered the words that changed everything. I'll take care of this, permanently. The decision scared me, but it also felt inevitable. Hours later, at the hospital, the doctors documented everything. Bruised ribs, finger-shaped marks on her arms, injuries in different stages of healing. Evidence of months of abuse. Evidence I should have noticed. The ear doctor's eyes softened as she promised the state would press charges, no matter what. But even that didn't settle the fire inside me. Detective Moody arrived, an older woman with steady hands and eyes that carried too many stories of women broken by men they once trusted. She interviewed Ren gently, patiently, while I paced the hallway. I wanted to storm out, find Andrew, and end this myself. But I couldn't leave Ren, not now. When the detective finished, she told me, "We'll arrest him. He won't get away with this." But the moment I stepped outside the hospital, I realized justice wasn't guaranteed. Men like Andrew, charming, careful, manipulative, always had ways of slipping through cracks. I thought of the way he'd looked at me across the lake that summer, like a son soaking in every piece of advice. He had studied me, studied Ren, learned our habits, our weaknesses. He had been planning his control from the start. That night, after securing Ren with a friend, I drove past Andrew's apartment. The lights were off. His car was gone. The silence of the street mocked me. My phone buzzed. A text from Ren. "Don't do anything stupid." But stupid was all I wanted. I gripped the steering wheel until my hands went numb. Every part of me screamed for revenge. Yet I knew this wasn't just about rage. This was about survival. Because men like Andrew don't stop. They don't leave quietly. They don't let go. And as I sat there in the dark, staring at the empty apartment, I realized my darkest fear wasn't just that my daughter had been hurt. It was that the worst was yet to come. The next morning, Ren's eyes were swollen from crying, but there was something harder in her expression, something that hadn't been there before. "Did you go see him?" she asked quietly as she sipped the tea I'd forced into her hands. Her face was a canvas of pain, bruises deepening into ugly shades of blue and black, lips trembling each time she spoke. I shook my head. "Not yet." She studied me. She knew me too well. "But you want to." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Instead, I said, "We'll let the police handle it." The lie tasted like ash on my tongue. Ren nodded slowly, but her eyes told me she didn't believe me. By noon, Detective Moody called. "We've issued a warrant. We'll have him in custody by tonight." I should have felt relief. Instead, dread coiled tighter in my gut, because I knew men like Andrew. Charming, calculating, always one step ahead. And I was right. That evening, Ren was resting on the couch, her friend Laura by her side, when my phone buzzed again. The detective's voice was tense. "We tried to pick him up. He wasn't home. Apartment cleared out. Neighbors said he left in a hurry this morning." I looked over at Ren, wrapped in her blanket, trying to pretend she felt safe. My throat tightened. So he's gone? For now, Moody said. We'll find him. But be careful. Men like this don't just disappear. I hung up, heart pounding. The house felt different that night. Every creak of the wood floor, every rustle of the wind outside made me jump. I double-checked the locks, then triple-checked them. I even slid a chair under the front doorknob like some amateur barricade. Ren watched me silently, her eyes wide, her breath shallow. He won't come here, I whispered, though I didn't believe it. But we were both wrong. 2 days later, Ren's boss called. She'd been put on leave. Apparently, Andrew had shown up at the hospital where she worked, demanding to see her. He'd screamed at the guards, claimed he was still her emergency contact, made such a scene that security had to drag him out. Ren's face went pale as she hung up the phone. He's taking everything from me. My job, my peace, She stopped, pressing a trembling hand to her ribs. That was the moment I knew. He wasn't done. He was escalating. That evening, I went to the garage and pulled out the old baseball bat I kept behind my workbench. I'd bought it for backyard games years ago, back when life had been simple, back when my wife was alive and Ren still laughed without hesitation. Now it was a weapon. Daniel, my neighbor and closest friend, stopped by as I was testing the bat's weight. He saw my face, the way I gripped the wood, and didn't need to ask. I've got something better, he muttered, disappearing into his house. 10 minutes later, he came back with a small black case. Inside lay a handgun. He placed it on my workbench gently, like it was something sacred. You ever shot before? He asked. I nodded. Army, years ago. Then you know what this means. His eyes were serious, almost sorrowful. This isn't about scaring him. If you use this, it's final. I stared at the gun. Sleek, heavy, final. Ren appeared in the doorway, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Teach me. Daniel's head snapped toward her. No, absolutely not. But Ren didn't back down. You won't always be there, Dad. And Andrew, he's not going to stop. I need to protect myself. The determination in her voice made my chest ache. My little girl, once afraid of thunderstorms, once clinging to me after nightmares, was asking me to show her how to kill if she had to. So I taught her. In the basement, we practiced with the gun unloaded. I showed her the safety, how to check the chamber, how to aim. Her hands were steady, too steady for someone her age. Mom would hate this, she whispered, sighting down the barrel. No, I corrected softly. Mom would hate that it's necessary. The days blurred after that. We moved from place to place. Daniel's house one night, a motel the next, Laura's apartment after that. Never the same bed twice. Never the same routine. It was exhausting, draining, but Andrew couldn't predict where we'd be. Still, it ate at Ren. This is what he wants, she muttered one night, staring at the ceiling. To control us. To make us live like fugitives while he hides in the shadows. I didn't answer, because she was right. On the 5th night, we made a mistake. We went back to our house to grab more clothes. At first glance, everything looked normal. But inside, things were different. Subtle. Wrong. Family photos turned face down. Drawers slightly open. And on Ren's bed, a dead fish. The same kind we used to catch at the lake with Andrew. Ren froze in the doorway. Her hand covered her mouth, but I still heard the tiny sound that escaped her throat. He's been here, she whispered. I stepped closer, putting myself between her and the bed. But my heart was hammering so loud it drowned out everything else. He'd been inside our home. He'd touched our things. He knew where we slept. That night, Ren didn't cry. She didn't shake. She just stared at the fish, her face set like stone. I'm not leaving again, she said finally, her voice cold, alien. This is our home, and if he wants us, he'll have to come through us. Her words terrified me, because for the first time, I wasn't sure if my daughter wanted to survive or fight. The 6th night, the house was too quiet. No TV humming in the background. No music from Ren's room. Just silence. Heavy and suffocating. I sat at the kitchen table, the gun Daniel had given me resting in front of me, its black metal catching the glow of the single overhead light. My hands hovered above it, but I couldn't bring myself to pick it up. Once I did, there was no going back. Ren came downstairs slowly, each step measured, deliberate. She'd showered, her hair damp and loose around her shoulders, but the bruises still painted her face, a constant reminder of what Andrew had done. She saw the gun and didn't flinch. Instead, she pulled out the chair across from me and sat down. Teach me how to load it. Her voice was calm, steady, like she was asking me to show her how to drive a car. I hesitated. Ren, please. Something in her tone silenced my protest. She wasn't asking, she was reclaiming. So I showed her, step by step, how to slide the magazine in, how to check the chamber, how to release the safety. Her fingers moved with precision, almost frightening in their determination. When she clicked the safety back on, she exhaled slowly. Good. I searched her face for fear, hesitation, anything that suggested she was still my little girl. But all I saw was steel. Later that night, Daniel called. His voice was tight, urgent. Mike, I just saw your boy at the Chevron on Route 9. Andrew, he was buying gas cans. Looked like he hadn't slept in days. The words hit like ice water down my spine. Gas cans meant fire. Fire meant destruction. Did you call the cops? I asked, gripping the phone so hard my knuckles went white. Yeah, but he was gone before they showed up. Mike, Daniel's voice dropped, low and grim. He looked bad, like a man with nothing left to lose. I hung up and immediately checked every lock, every window. Ren stood in the living room, watching me. She didn't ask what Daniel had said. She didn't need to. The next morning, the power went out. Not a flicker, not a surge, just complete, sudden darkness. I froze, heart slamming against my ribs. The fridge stopped humming. The heater clicked off. Silence swallowed the house. Not an accident. Stay calm, I whispered, though my own voice shook. I reached for the gun. Ren, get to the bathroom. Lock the door. She didn't move. She shook her head slowly. No, we stay together. Her voice was firm, unshakable. I wanted to argue, to force her to safety, but footsteps creaked across the porch before I could say another word. Slow, deliberate. He wanted us to know he was there. Then, through the stillness, Andrew's voice drifted inside, muffled, but clear enough. I love you, Ren. I can't live without you. My skin crawled. His tone shifted, swinging between pleading and threatening. We were perfect, until he poisoned you against me. But I forgive you. I'll always forgive you, even after you made me hurt you. Ren's breath quickened. She lifted the gun, hands steady, her voice cut through the dark. You're sick, Andrew. He laughed, high-pitched and unhinged. I'm sick? You're the one who broke me. You and your broken family. Your dead mother. Your pathetic father. I tried to fix you. Both of you. But you wouldn't let me. The words hit me like knives. He'd studied us, our grief, our vulnerabilities, and he'd used them like weapons. Then the window shattered. Glass sprayed across the living room as Andrew climbed through, his good arm gripping a knife, his broken one strapped in a filthy cast. His eyes were wild, bloodshot. His smile stretched too wide. I swung the bat with everything I had. He ducked. The wood slammed into the wall, splintering plaster. He lunged at Ren. She raised the gun. Her hands didn't shake. Back off! She screamed. For a split second, Andrew froze. His eyes locked on hers, and something flickered: recognition, obsession, love twisted into poison. Then he lunged again. The shot rang out, deafening in the enclosed space. Andrew staggered, clutching his side, eyes wide with disbelief. Blood blossomed across his shirt. He didn't fall. Not yet. He stumbled forward, knife raised, snarling like an animal cornered. Ren screamed, fired again. This time, he dropped the knife. His knees buckled. He collapsed onto the broken glass, gasping, blood pooling beneath him. Silence fell. The gun slipped from Ren's hand. She stood frozen, her chest heaving, eyes locked on Andrew's twitching body. I rushed to her, pulling her into my arms. Her body was rigid, cold, trembling with shock. Shh, it's over, I whispered, though I wasn't sure I believed it. Because Andrew wasn't dead. Not yet. His breaths were shallow, ragged, but still there. And as I held my daughter, I knew this wasn't the end. Not for him. Not for us. Some nightmares don't die easily. The sirens came fast. Red and blue lights painted the walls of our living room, flashing over shattered glass, and blood smeared across the floor. Ren sat on the couch, her hands clenched so tightly her knuckles were white, her face pale against the bruises already marring it. Paramedics lifted Andrew's limp body onto a stretcher. He was still alive. I couldn't decide if that was relief or disappointment. His head lolled to the side as they wheeled him out, his lips moving faintly like he was trying to form words. Ren flinched at the sound. Detective Moody arrived minutes later, her eyes scanning the chaos. She crouched in front of Ren, her voice calm, steady. You're safe now. He's in custody. Ren's gaze flicked to me, then back to Moody. Safe, she whispered. The word sounded foreign, like she didn't trust it. I stayed silent, because I didn't trust it either. At the hospital, Andrew was stabilized. Broken ribs from the gunshots. A punctured lung. But alive. Always alive. Moody updated us in the sterile waiting room. He'll be charged with breaking and entering, attempted assault. And she paused, her lips tightening. But he's already claiming self-defense. I blinked. Self-defense? He broke into our home with a knife. He's saying you attacked him first, Moody explained grimly. His lawyer is already spinning it. That he came to talk. That you ambushed him. Ren laughed bitterly, the sound hollow. Unbelievable. I pressed a hand to her shoulder, grounding both of us. Let them try. We have evidence. The hospital reports, the restraining order violations, But my words trailed off, because deep down, I knew how this worked. Men like smooth talkers, manipulators, they always had an angle. 6 weeks later, the trial date was set. 6 weeks of waiting, watching, jumping at shadows. Andrew made bail again, ankle monitor strapped to his leg like a decoration. Ren saw his car parked just outside the legal distance from her work, from our home. Always close enough to remind us he was there. The police said they couldn't do anything if he wasn't violating the order. He's smart, Moody admitted during one of her visits. Knows exactly how far he can push without crossing the line. Ren's face hardened every time she spotted his car. He's taunting us. And he was. One night, I followed him. I sat in my truck across from a bar downtown, watching him through the neon glow of beer signs. He was laughing, gesturing wildly with friends, probably spinning his story about his crazy ex-girlfriend, her violent father, how he was the victim. They believed him. Of course they did. The gun rested on the passenger seat beside me. My fingers drummed against the wheel, my heart pounding with the thought of how easy it would be. Wait for him to stumble out drunk, follow him to a dark street, make it look like a mugging gone wrong. But Ren's face flashed in my mind. Her bruises, her steady hands on the gun, her whispered plea, "Teach me." I couldn't leave her alone in this fight. Not by going to prison. Not by giving Andrew the power to turn me into the monster he already claimed I was. So I drove home. Ren was at the kitchen table, unable to sleep. She didn't look up as I walked in. "You followed him." It wasn't a question. "Yeah." Her eyes lifted, meeting mine. "Did you?" I shook my head. "No." Silence stretched between us. Then she nodded, as if she understood completely. We were both carrying the same war inside us, the pull between who we used to be and who Andrew was turning us into. 3 days later, Andrew cut his ankle monitor. The call came early. Moody's voice was sharp with exhaustion. "He's gone. We're searching. But be careful. Lock everything. We'll have a car outside your house." That day was a blur of fear. Every sound outside felt like a threat. Every shadow stretched too long. Ren jumped at the slightest creak, her breath coming in shallow gasps. By evening, they found his car. At the lake. Our lake. The place where I'd taught Andrew to fish. The place where he'd called me Pops, like he was already family. He had poisoned it too. Turned even that memory into a weapon. "We're searching the area," Moody said, "but it's a lot of ground to cover." Ren and I sat in silence after she left, both of us knowing the same truth. He wasn't running, he was planning. That night, Daniel called. His voice shook in a way I'd never heard before, not even when he told me stories from Afghanistan. "He was here, Mike, in my garage, with a knife." His breath hitched. "We fought. I broke his arm, the good one, but he got away. I need stitches, but I'll live." My chest tightened. "Daniel, don't apologize. Just keep that gun close. He's desperate now. That makes him more dangerous." I hung up, my hands shaking. Across the room, Ren stood at the window, staring out into the dark yard. Her reflection looked ghostly against the glass. "Dad?" Her voice was quiet. "What if he doesn't stop until one of us is dead?" I swallowed hard, but the truth caught in my throat. Because I didn't know. And that was the night I realized my darkest fear wasn't losing my daughter. It was losing her to this war before Andrew even touched her again. The next morning, the phone rang. Not a call this time, a stolen number blocked. I shouldn't have answered, but I did. "Mike." His voice was ragged, slurred from painkillers, but the rage was still sharp. "You ruined everything. You turned her against me. We were happy. Perfect. Until you poisoned her." I gripped the phone so tightly it creaked in my hand. "Come try something," I said, my voice steady in a way that scared me. "See what happens." He laughed, high and broken. "Oh, I will. I'll take everything from you, just like you took everything from me." Then the line went dead. Ren was standing in the doorway, her face pale, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. She had heard every word. That afternoon, Detective Moody came by, her eyes heavier than usual. She set down a folder on our table, flipping it open. Inside were plastic evidence bags filled with journals they'd pulled from Andrew's car. "Pages and pages," she said quietly. "Plans, obsessions, your daughter's name written over and over. He bought rope sedatives. He was planning something long before the attack." Ren leaned over the table, her breath catching as she scanned the photos of Andrew's handwriting. Her name scrawled in jagged letters, spiraling down the page like madness itself. She ran to the bathroom and vomited. I couldn't look away. Those pages weren't just proof of his obsession. They were proof he wouldn't stop. Not unless someone stopped him. Moody placed a hand on my shoulder. "We need to get you somewhere safe. Somewhere he doesn't know about." That night, I drove Ren to the cabin. It was 3 hours north, tucked away in thick woods. A place her mother and I had bought years ago for weekends, though we'd only gone a handful of times. It was isolated, quiet, forgotten. Andrew had never been there. Or so I thought. When we pulled up, headlights sweeping across the dirt driveway, my stomach dropped. The ground was marked with fresh boot prints circling the cabin. Too large to be mine. Too heavy to be Ren's. Ren saw them too. She whispered the words I didn't want to hear. "He found us." Inside, I checked every lock, every window, every corner. Everything was intact. No sign of entry, but the air felt wrong, like the house itself was holding its breath. Ren unpacked slowly, methodically, as if going through the motions would make things normal. We had enough food for a few days, bottled water, blankets, the gun, the bat. We could survive here, at least until morning. Then maybe we'd leave, regroup, figure out another plan. But as the night deepened, unease grew. The woods outside were silent. Too silent. No crickets, no owls, no rustling of small animals. Even nature knew a predator was close. At 10 o'clock p.m., the power went out. Not a surge, not a flicker, just complete blackness. "Dad?" Ren's voice trembled. I steadied my breath, forcing calm I didn't feel. "Stay calm. Get the gun." The flashlight beam trembled in my hand as I swept it across the windows. Then footsteps. Slow, heavy, moving across the deck. Ren stood beside me, the gun in her hands, her shoulders squared. She didn't run. She didn't even flinch. Then his voice came. From outside. Muffled, but close. I love you, Ren. I can't live without you. Her breath caught, but her grip on the gun didn't falter. He kept speaking, voice rising and falling like a prayer. Your father poisoned you, but I forgive you. I'll always forgive you, even after you made me hurt you. Ren shouted back through the dark. You're sick, Andrew. Stay away. A laugh answered. Hi. Unhinged. Sick? You're the one who made me like this. You and your broken father. I tried to fix you. Tried to fix both of you. But you wouldn't let me. Then came the sound that dreaded glass exploding inward. The window shattered, shards spraying across the floor. Andrew climbed through, his filthy cast strapped around one arm, his other hand clutching the knife he'd stolen from Daniel's garage. Ren raised a gun, her breath steady. Andrew's eyes locked on her, wild and gleaming. He stepped closer, knife raised. I lunged with the bat, swinging hard. The wood cracked against his side, staggering him, but he didn't fall. He snarled, feral, stumbling toward Ren. She fired. The shot thundered through the cabin. Andrew dropped the knife, his body jerking backward. He crumpled to the floor, clutching his chest, blood spreading fast. Silence. Ren's chest heaved, the gun trembling in her hands. Is he? But before she could finish, Andrew coughed. Blood sprayed across the wooden floor. His eyes flicked open, burning with rage even through the pain. And he smiled. It was faint, twisted, but unmistakable. Because even bleeding out on the floor, Andrew wasn't finished. Not yet. The sound of his cough echoed through the cabin, wet and jagged. Blood trickled from his mouth, his body convulsing, but his eyes never left Ren. That faint, twisted smile clung to his face like a mask. Ren stepped back, the gun shaking in her hands. Dad, he's still alive. I moved fast, kicking the knife across the room. My chest was heaving, my palms slick with sweat. Ren, keep the gun on him. She swallowed hard but nodded. Her arms straightened, the barrel fixed on his chest. Her breathing matched mine, shallow, ragged, desperate. Andrew groaned, his voice gurgling. See? I told you. She's just like me. Just like me. His words crawled under my skin, poison disguised as prophecy. Shut up. I snapped, the bat raised, my knuckles wide around the handle. He coughed again, laughing through the pain. She pulled the trigger. Not you. She chose me. Ren's voice cracked. I didn't choose you. I ended you. Her words were sharp, but her tears betrayed her. Then headlights swept across the cabin walls. For a split second, I thought it was backup. Police. Moody. Salvation. But the beams cut off abruptly, plunging us back into darkness. Andrew's smile widened. Friends of mine, he rasped. I froze. The woods outside were silent, but the engine idled faintly, just beyond the trees. Another car. Another threat. Ren's hand trembled. Dad! Stay with me, I whispered. Focus on him. I crept to the window, bat raised, peering into the dark. A shadow shifted by the tree line. Tall, still, watching. My pulse thundered. Was it real? Or was the fear twisting my mind into ghosts? Behind me, Andrew started humming. Off-key, childlike. A lullaby turned sinister. Ren flinched. Stop it! She screamed, her voice breaking. He wheezed a laugh, blood bubbling at his lips. You can't kill me. Even if my body dies, I'll still be here. Between you, in you. That was enough. I stormed forward, raising the bat. But Ren's voice cut through the rage. Dad, don't! I stopped. My arms shook with the urge to bring the wood crashing down on his skull, to erase him once and for all. But Ren's eyes pleading, desperate, pulled me back. If you do it, she whispered, you become him. Her words hit like a strike to the chest. I lowered the bat, my breath ragged. Andrew's chuckle faded into a groan as his body slumped sideways, blood pooling wider across the floor. His smile finally broke, replaced by pain. His strength was draining. Call Moody, I told Ren, fumbling for my phone. But before I could dial, the power flickered back on. Lights blazed. The sudden brightness revealed every shattered shard of glass, every streak of blood, every ounce of horror we'd endured. Ren blinked against the light, tears streaming down her face. Dad, what if he lives again? What if he keeps coming back? I pulled her into my arms, cradling her against my chest as Andrew gurgled weakly on the floor. Then we make sure the system doesn't let him walk away this time. But even as I said it, my gut twisted, because I knew how the system worked. And men like Andrew always found a way to bend it. Minutes later, sirens wailed in the distance. Red and blue lights cut through the trees, flashing against the cabin walls. Relief washed over me, but it was thin, fragile. Detective Moody burst through the door, gun drawn, scanning the scene. Her eyes landed on Andrew, bleeding out on the floor, and then on Ren, clutching the gun. What happened? She demanded. Ren's voice was hoarse, but steady. He broke in. Again. I shot him. Moody's gaze lingered on her. Then she holstered her weapon and nodded. You did what you had to do. Paramedics swarmed the cabin, lifting Andrew onto a stretcher. His face was pale, his breath shallow, but still he was alive. As they wheeled him out, his eyes flicked open one last time. He looked straight at me, lips barely moving. This isn't over. And then he was gone, swallowed by flashing lights and chaos. The cabin was quiet again. Too quiet. Ren slumped against me, her whole body trembling now that the adrenaline was gone. I held her, rocking gently, like when she was little and nightmares woke her in the middle of the night. But this nightmare wasn't over. It was only waiting. And as I pressed my lips to the top of her head, I realized something terrifying. My darkest fear hadn't been Andrew breaking in. It hadn't been him hurting her again. It was knowing that, no matter what happened next, we weren't the same anymore. Ren wasn't the same. And neither was I. The days after the cabin blurred into one long stretch of exhaustion. The police had taken our statements, photographed the blood, collected the shattered glass as evidence. But none of that made the house feel safe again. Ren wouldn't sleep alone. Every night she curled up on the couch beside me, blanket wrapped tight, eyes flicking to the window at every sound. I stayed awake as long as I could, gun on the table, listening for footsteps that never came. Andrew was in the hospital under guard, but alive, always alive. Moody stopped by a week later. She sat at our kitchen table, her expression grave. The DA's pressing charges: attempted murder, assault, multiple restraining order violations. It's a strong case. Good, I said, though my voice felt flat. But she didn't look relieved. His lawyer is building a narrative, claiming you provoked him. That Ren shot in fear of her own father's violence. My head snapped up. What? They're twisting it, Moody said, her eyes heavy. The journals prove obsession, but his defense will argue he was unstable, that you exploited it to turn Ren against him. Ren's jaw tightened, her fists clenched in her lap. So now it's our fault. No, Moody said quickly, but be prepared. They'll use everything. Photos, hospital visits, even your relationship with Andrew before the abuse came out. I thought of fishing trips, family dinners, the times I'd called him son. My stomach twisted. After she left, Ren sat in silence for a long time before finally speaking. Dad, what if the jury believes him? I didn't answer, because I'd seen it before. Men like Andrew, charming, articulate, victims in their own stories that could make people believe anything. 2 months later, the trial began. The courthouse smelled like old wood and coffee. Reporters swarmed the steps, cameras flashing as we walked inside. Ren's bruises had faded, but her eyes carried the weight of everything she'd endured. She held her head high, though I could feel her trembling when my hand brushed hers. Andrew entered in a wheelchair, pale and gaunt, his arm still strapped in a cast. He looked fragile, broken, the kind of man people instinctively wanted to protect. His eyes met mine across the room, and that faint smile tugged at his lips. The prosecution laid out the evidence: the hospital records, the restraining order, the journals. Moody testified, steady and firm. Ren took the stand, her voice clear even as her hands shook. She described everything: every bruise, every shove. Every night she cried herself to sleep believing she was worthless. I thought maybe, just maybe, we'd win. But then Andrew's lawyer began. He painted Andrew as a grieving man, abandoned by his fiancée, manipulated by an overbearing father-in-law. He held up photos of Andrew smiling at family dinners, helping me fix the garage, fishing at the lake. He said Andrew was a man who had lost his own father young, who only wanted a family. And me? He painted me as a bitter widower, desperate to keep my daughter all to myself. A man who'd never wanted her to move on, who had threatened Andrew, who had turned Ren against him. The jury shifted in their seats. I saw the flickers of doubt. When Andrew testified, his voice was weak, trembling. He talked about loving Ren, about trying to help her heal. He said he never wanted to hurt her, that he was only defending himself when I attacked him at the cabin. Then he looked at me and whispered, "I still love her." Ren broke then. She shouted from her seat, her voice cracking. "You don't love me, you broke me." The judge banged the gavel, calling for order, but the damage was done. The jury had seen her outburst, her anger, her tears. They didn't see truth. They saw emotion. When it was my turn to testify, I tried to stay calm, to explain what happened. But Andrew's lawyer was sharp, relentless. He twisted every word, every hesitation, until I felt like I was the one on trial. By the end, I wasn't sure what the jury believed anymore. Ren held my hand as we waited for the verdict. Her palm was cold, her eyes hollow. The jury filed back in, their faces unreadable. On the charge of attempted murder, the foreman began, "We find the defendant." The words caught in my throat. My heart pounded so loudly I almost couldn't hear. "Not guilty." Ren gasped, her whole body recoiling as if struck. My vision blurred, rage surging through me. The foreman continued, "On the charge of assault." My fists clenched. "Guilty." A half measure, enough to give him time, but not enough to keep him away forever. Andrew's smile returned, faint but triumphant, as they wheeled him out. Ren buried her face in her hands, her body shaking. And in that moment, I realized my darkest fear had come true. Not that Andrew had hurt her, but that the world had chosen to believe him over us. The sentence was a joke. 2 years. With credit for time served, it would be even less. Assault, not attempted murder. A slap on the wrist for nearly destroying my daughter. Ren sat beside me in the courtroom, motionless, her eyes fixed on the floor as if staring at it hard enough might make it open and swallow her whole. Andrew was wheeled past us. His cast had come off, and though he still looked pale, I saw strength in the way he sat upright, chin lifted. His eyes flicked toward Ren, and for a moment, they softened. Then he mouthed two words. Wait for me. Ren's breath caught. She grabbed my hand so hard her nails dug into my skin. Outside, cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions about the trial, about Andrew, about whether justice had been served. I didn't answer. Neither did Ren. We pushed through the crowd, the noise chasing us down the courthouse steps. That night, Ren locked herself in her room. I heard muffled sobs through the door, but when I knocked, she wouldn't let me in. I sat in the hallway for hours, my back against the wall, listening to the sound of my daughter breaking apart piece by piece. Weeks passed. Andrew was transferred to state prison. Moody checked in once, her voice heavy. He'll serve some time, but I know it's not what you hoped. No, I admitted, it's not. Ren tried to return to work, tried to study, tried to live, but Andrew's shadow clung to her. Every time the phone rang, she froze. Every time a car slowed outside the house, her body stiffened. One night, she whispered into the darkness of the living room where we both sat awake. What if he comes back? What if he finishes what he started? I didn't know how to answer. Months later, the letter arrived. It was addressed to Ren. No return name, just a prison number. She almost threw it away, but curiosity won. Her hands shook as she opened it. The handwriting was jagged but familiar. I'm sorry. The words sprawled across the first page, followed by paragraphs of twisted apologies. He wrote about how prison had made him think, how he realized he'd hurt her, how he still loved her. By the second page, the tone shifted. You can't keep me out forever. When I get out, we can be together again. No one will stop us this time. Ren dropped the letter like it had burned her. She backed away, her chest heaving. He's still obsessed. I picked it up, reading every poisonous word. My hands trembled with rage. We showed it to Moody. She sighed, her face pinched. It's disturbing, but technically, it doesn't violate his restrictions. He's allowed to send mail, so he can write threats from a prison cell, and that's fine. I snapped. It's not enough to extend his sentence, she admitted. Ren whispered. He's still inside me. He won't let me breathe. And I saw the toll. The way she jumped at shadows, the way her smile never reached her eyes anymore. Andrew was still hurting her, even locked away. That was the day I stopped waiting for the system. I started preparing. I bought new locks, reinforced the doors, took Ren to the range every weekend until her hands moved like second nature with the gun. I set up cameras around the property, motion detectors, alarms. Ren noticed. One night she asked, do you think he's really coming back? I didn't lie. Yes. Her eyes didn't waver. Then we'll be ready. Years crawled by. Each day chipped a little more away from us, but we survived. Ren grew stronger, more guarded. She finished school, got a job, even started smiling again, small smiles, careful ones. But always, the shadow lingered. And then, one crisp autumn morning, the phone rang. It was Moody. Her voice was tight. Andrew's out. Early release for good behavior. My hand went cold around the receiver. When? Yesterday. Ren was standing across the room, watching my face. She knew before I even spoke. Her lips parted, her breath sharp. He's coming. I wanted to tell her no, that we were safe, that he'd moved on. But I couldn't, because deep down, I knew the truth. Men like Andrew never move on. That night, as we checked the locks, loaded the guns, scanned the shadows beyond the yard, Ren's voice cut through the silence. Dad, what if surviving isn't enough? What if he never stops until we end him? Her eyes were steady, cold, not the eyes of the girl I used to know. And in that moment, I realized something that chilled me more than Andrew ever could. I hadn't just been protecting my daughter all these years. I'd been remaking her in my own image, turning her into someone who no longer feared the darkness, someone who was ready to kill. And maybe that was Andrew's final victory. Not breaking us apart, but changing us forever. The night Andrew walked free, the air itself felt heavier. Every sound outside made Ren tense. Every shadow pulled her gaze like a magnet. We were living in a siege before the first shot was even fired. We didn't sleep. We sat in the living room, the gun between us on the table, the front door double locked, the cameras glowing faint red in the corners. Every hour I checked the feeds, scanning for movement. At 2 a.m, the motion alarm chimed. Ren jolted upright. Her eyes found mine, wide, terrified but steady. I pulled up the camera feed. A figure stood at the edge of the yard, just standing, watching. The grainy footage blurred the face, but I didn't need to see it clearly. It was him. Ren whispered, he's here. I reached for the gun, but her hand closed over mine. No, Dad, not yet. We sat frozen, hearts pounding, watching as Andrew stood there for what felt like an eternity. Then he turned, walking back into the woods, disappearing into the dark. He wanted us to know. The next morning, Moody came. She looked at the footage, her mouth pressed into a thin line. It's not enough, she said. He didn't step on the property. He didn't break the order. Ren's laugh was sharp, bitter. So he can just stalk us forever? And you'll do nothing? Moody didn't answer. She didn't have to. That night, Ren sat across from me, her face pale but determined. We can't keep living like this, looking over our shoulders, waiting. I studied her, the set of her jaw, the fire in her eyes. She looked so much like her mother in that moment it made my chest ache. What are you saying? I asked. She leaned forward. I'm saying survival isn't enough anymore. He won't stop, Dad. Not until one of us is dead. The words hung heavy in the air. I thought of all the times I'd sworn to protect her, the promises I'd made at her mother's bedside, and I realized protection wasn't enough. Protection was waiting, reacting, praying. Ren was right. We had to end it. The plan formed slowly, carefully, not spoken outright, but threaded between half sentences and long silences. We didn't need to say it directly. We both knew. 3 nights later, the opportunity came. The alarm chimed again. This time, the figure didn't linger at the edge of the yard. He stepped closer, past the fence, onto the grass. Andrew. His movements were slow, deliberate, like he wanted us to see him, like he was daring us. Ren picked up the gun. Her hands were steady, her breathing even. I grabbed the bat. We didn't wait for him to come closer. We stepped outside together, the night air biting cold, our breaths fogging in the darkness. Andrew froze at the sight of us. His smile spread slow and cruel. There you are. Leave, I said, my voice low, deadly calm. He tilted his head, eyes glinting. You can't keep her from me forever. She knows it. I know it. Ren raised the gun. I'm not yours. He laughed, that same unhinged laugh that had haunted our nights. You pulled the trigger once. Do it again. Show your daddy who you really are. Her finger tightened on the trigger. My chest clenched. I wanted to tell her to stop, to let me do it instead, to keep her hands clean. But then I saw it in her eyes. Not fear, not hesitation. Freedom. The shot cracked through the night. Andrew staggered back, shock flashing across his face. He collapsed onto the grass, his blood soaking into the earth. His smile finally broke, twisting into something small, pitiful, human. Ren lowered the gun slowly. Her hands trembled now, the adrenaline ebbing, but her eyes stayed locked on his body. He didn't move again. The silence afterward was suffocating. Only our ragged breaths filled the night. I dropped the bat, rushing to her side, pulling her into my arms. She buried her face in my chest, shaking violently, her sobs staring through me. It's over, I whispered, my voice breaking. It's finally over. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't. Not really. Because Andrew was gone, but he'd left something behind. He'd left his shadow inside us. Ren had pulled the trigger, twice now. Her innocence was gone. My soul carried the weight of knowing I'd let it happen, maybe even guided her to it. We survived, but survival had cost us everything. The police would come, there would be questions, reports, maybe even trials. But none of that mattered anymore. Because the truth was simple. That night, my darkest fear came true. Not that my daughter would die, but that to keep her alive, I'd watch her become someone I no longer recognized. And as I held her in the cold, beneath the empty sky, one truth cut deeper than any wound Andrew had ever given us. In the end, survival changes everyone.